A few days later, I woke up to see two different groups had posted memes of me. One posted a picture of me from the newspaper and had a target around my face. They said I was pushing to give 6-year-olds erotica and pornography. And they went on in the post to say outlandish things. I told my harassers from the get-go that I would be suing them. I am Jeff Gaynor. I was a classroom teacher for 38 years, 32 with the Ann Arbor Public Schools, and I'm currently a trustee on the Ann Arbor School Board. I will be reading the testimony of Amanda Jones, a middle school librarian who has been harassed and defamed for speaking out against censorship attempts in her public library. I am Amanda Jones, and I am a school librarian. I've been an educator for 22 years, school librarian for 8 years. I work at the same school where I went to middle school, and I've always worked there. I have 6 former students who now work with me. I have 40-something grand students who are what I call the children of former students. I taught their parents, who are now adults, and now I teach their kids. I am the current president of the Louisiana Association of School Librarians and was the 2020 Louisiana Librarian of the Year, and then 2021 National School Librarian of the Year, and School Library Journal Librarian of the Year. So I think I have the best job in the world. Actually, my ordeal is not from being a school librarian. It's from being a resident and speaking out at my public library. We're a very small community, very Republican, very evangelical Christian area. We're in the Bible Belt, not the most inclusive community. So we have an extremist group in Louisiana that has targeted a neighboring parish for the last 3 years. They've replaced the library board with their members, and it's led to book bans, censorship, and no book displays in the library. I've been keeping track of that for a year or two. As a school librarian, I've always kept track of the issues of censorship in schools and libraries. I saw that a member of the neighboring parish's extremist group posted in our parish's Facebook group, they call it the Rants and Raves, and she posted that everyone should be at the library board meeting. And so I was like, what's happening here? Through word of mouth, I heard they were going to try to censor LGBTQ plus books. It was just rumor at that point. All that was on the agenda was book signage and content. But I knew from watching other states and school districts that book signage and content usually means they're going to try to censor something. And looking at what's been censored in the past 10 years, according to the American Library Association, it's all just books by or about historically marginalized communities. So I went and spoke at the public library on July 19th of 2022, and a whole lot of other people did too. There were maybe 22-something speakers, and only 2 spoke in favor of censorship. Everyone else spoke against it. My full speech states, my name is Amanda Jones. I am the 2021 School Library Journal National Librarian of the Year and an international speaker and advocate on behalf of libraries. And I'm president of the Louisiana Association of School Librarians. I am here as a representative of that organization, but more importantly, as a lifelong resident of Livingston Parish, parent of a child in this district, and a taxpayer. I am here tonight because book content and book signage have been listed on tonight's agenda. I hope that what I am about to say is not needed, and that my fear that a member of the board is trying to censor books and signage is unfounded. While book challenges are often done with the best of intentions and in the name of age appropriateness, they often target marginalized communities such as Black, Indigenous, people of color, and the LGBTQ community. They also target books on sexual health and reproduction. Considering that Livingston Parish has the highest rate of children in foster care per capita in Louisiana, and that number has doubled over the last few years. I find it ironic that any member of the community would want to limit access to any book on reproduction or relocate it away from our children who need it the most. Once you start relocating and banning one topic, it becomes a slippery slope. And where does it end? All members of our community deserve to be seen, to have access to information, and see themselves in our public library collection. Censorship and relocating books and displays is harmful to our community, but will be extremely harmful to our most vulnerable, our children. According to the Trevor Project, LGBTQ youth are not inherently prone to suicide risk because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, but rather placed at high risk because of how they are mistreated or stigmatized in society. Libraries are for everyone, according to the American Library Association, of which I am a member. Libraries are a cornerstone of the community dedicated to serving the information needs of everyone. As such, they collect and make available a wide variety of information resources, representing the range of human thought and experience. With such a broad spectrum of ideas and information available, it is inevitable that people will occasionally encounter resources they believe to be inappropriate for their family. Just because you enter a library does not mean you will not see something that you don't like. Libraries have diverse collections with resources from many points of view. And the library's mission is to provide access of information for all users. All library users have the First Amendment right to borrow, read, view, and listen to library resources, according to the American Library Association. If an individual is concerned about it, about children or young adults' resources, or its location in the library, that individual has the right to go through the library's reconsideration policy that is already in place. Each family has the right to determine which library resources are acceptable for their own children. But individuals must also realize they must afford the same rights to all other parents. The citizens of our parish consist of taxpayers who are white, black, brown, gay, straight, Christian, non-Christian, people from all backgrounds and walks of life. And no one portion of the community should dictate what the rest of the citizens have access to. Just because you don't want to read it or see it doesn't give you the right to deny others or demand its relocation. If we remove or relocate books with LGBTQ or sexual health content, what message is that sending to our community members? Why is your belief system any more important than others? What will be next if you accomplish your mission? Parents have a personal responsibility to monitor their own child's reading and nobody else's. The Livingston Parish Library Director, Giovanni Teroff, has accomplished wonders for our public library and made it into an award-winning system. There's a reason the Louisiana Library Association named him the 2019 Public Library Director of the Year. Trust his judgment and those of the other dedicated Livingston Parish employees. There's a solid collection development policy already in place. Nobody is putting pornography in children's sections of the library. Stop that false narrative. The librarians over the collection have library science degrees and use professional reviews, which lists ages of relevancy and age appropriateness before deciding where to place them in the library. There is already a challenge process if a community member does not like a particular book or location of a book in the library. As board members, I would hope you already knew that. To board member Aaron Sandifer, who placed this item on the agenda, I will say this. You once posted on social media that there are folks who do not agree with you and that we can be one of your greatest teachers. That is an admirable statement. I would love to teach you about how harmful censorship, book policing, and agenda items like these affect our youth and historically marginalized community members. To the entire board, I will say this. I grew up in this parish being taught that God is love. What I've come to realize is that what many people mean is that God is love only if you have the same religious and political beliefs as them. I have lived in our parish for 44 years. I am the mother of a child in our school system. I have been a library card holder in Livingston Parish since 1983. I have watched our public library grow to be one of our parish's greatest assets, something we can be proud of. I remind board members that regardless of your own beliefs on the topic of book content and location, to think about this. No one on the right side of history has ever been on the side of censorship and hiding books. In the words of author Stephen Chbosky, banning books gives us silence when we need speech. It closes our ears when we need to listen. It makes us blind when we need sight. Hate and fear, disguised as moral outrage, have no place in Livingston Parish. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Sorry that was long. Believe it or not, I only had a day to write it. I don't think the lady who put it on the agenda was prepared for backlash. I don't think she knew what she was getting herself into. And so I think she just forgot to make a motion and nobody else reminded her. And so it was tabled. I thought, yay, we won. But apparently they didn't like what I said, because although 17 or 18 other people said the same thing, they decided to attack me. After I spoke at the public library, they made Freedom of Information Acts, public record requests for my personnel records, my emails, and a title list for my school's library. They couldn't find anything, probably because they don't have anything inappropriate. So yeah, they did try my school. I'm the only one that I know of that they've tried to do that to in my district. A few days later, I woke up to see 2 different groups had posted memes of me. One posted a picture of me from the newspaper and had a target around my face. They said I was pushing to give 6-year-olds erotica and pornography. And they went on in the post to say outlandish things. A neighboring school's gym burned down. It got struck by lightning. And they got confused and thought it was my school. So they said, quote, right after she spoke, her school burned down, unquote. It was just ridiculous. But there were other things, like they said they were going to come to my school. They were going to pay me a visit. Very ominous. And then they posted, I think it's a Warren Buffett quote, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to destroy it, and that they were coming after me. And then there were the usual things that you see on those kinds of posts, calling me pedo groomer, all that business. That was the extremist group from the neighboring district. And then a local person posted a picture, a professional photograph from my professional website. And he made a meme and said that I was advocating the teaching of anal sex to 11-year-olds. He was just trying to smear me. I never even mentioned I worked at a public school. The only reason I mentioned that I was National School Librarian of the Year and President of the Louisiana Association of School Librarians was so that the board would give what I had to say weight, and so they'd know I know what I'm talking about. In fact, before giving that speech, I had my speech approved by HR at their school system. I just did that on my own volition. I wasn't sure what the rules were about speaking out as a resident, but they told me I had every right to speak, but only as a resident. They just said, don't mention your school's name or your school system. So I didn't. I wasn't planning on doing that anyway. I've spoken at 3 different board meetings now. Their bloggers tried to say I said things I didn't, but they didn't realize I had all of the audio of the entire meetings. They're shifty. These are shifty people. When I started receiving the hate mail, the death threats, like these awful comments on social media, I made sure to let my principal and vice principal know, my superintendent of schools, HR, my school board representative for my district. I kept them in the loop on everything. I also contacted my union, and I actually joined the other union too. I contacted the American Library Association. They were not as helpful as I thought they should be. Everyone in the school system gave 100% support, but they're not vocal about it. They say they can't be vocal. My theory is that they're scared. They see how I've been targeted and ostracized in the community, and they don't want to bring things back into the school. And I understand that. But I did reach out to 3 librarians in Texas who call themselves the freedom fighters, freedom spelled R-E-A-D, and they helped me tremendously. My family was supportive too. Because of the national awards I've won, and through my work with the American Association of School Librarians, I'm on several committees at the national level. I know a lot of people. So I'm afforded these relationships with people that the average school librarian does not have. So I was able to reach out to the president-elect of ALA and the president, past president, and president-elect of AASL. They're all friends of mine. I reached out to the editor of School Library Journal, and they all came together to give me so much support. They connected me with an organization called Campaign for Our Shared Future, who actually provided me with a communications team for interviews and talking points, and they vet anyone who asks for an interview. They research everyone before I speak to them. I email them every week asking for help with interviews, and even journalists. All they've asked for in return, if they ever have donors meetings, if I could share my story in ways in which they've helped me, so they can get more funding for donors. They're trying to build a legal defense fund for educators. So is every library. I reached out to PEN America. They have been very helpful. So many organizations. But again, the average school librarian would not be in the position that I'm in. My assistant superintendent is the head of 5,000 employees, and he checks on me, and he tells me he's proud of me every single week. So you know they're very supportive. I do think, you know, they honored me 2 years in a row publicly at school board meetings for awards. So I think they would be hard-pressed to then turn their backs on me publicly. It wouldn't be a good look for them. I also made it very clear from the get-go. I said, I'm not meaning to threaten you with the statement, but I am in 2 unions and I am connected to the Tulane First Amendment Law Clinic. I have a personal attorney and an attorney through the ACLU. So if this comes back, I mean, any way in my job, you will hear about it, and I am protected. So I did state that up front. I've covered my butt. I told my harassers from the get-go that I would be suing them. I've asked my principal, and he said, not a single parent has called the school and complained about anything. I think that's because I was born and raised here. My mother taught half the community kindergarten. I've taught for 22 years. I've really established myself as a dedicated educator in my community. So even if they do think I'm wrong for speaking out against censorship, they know I'm good at my job and that I work hard for my kids. One parent did make a couple of complaints about a few books their child was reading, but I just told them, oh, your child can turn them in and get new ones. She never really said anything else about it. It doesn't affect my work life, except for the fact that I'm taking a medical leave. This happened in July. So August, September, October, I was a hot mess. Panic attacks, significant weight loss, hair falling out, hives, high blood pressure. So my doctor advised me to take a medical sabbatical. So I'll be taking a medical sabbatical for the spring semester.
So tell us about the lawsuit.
I sued them for defamation. My attorneys have been researching, looking for precedent for educators or librarians being defamed on social media. There are no cases. One of the largest law firms in the world, I can't mention the law firm, offered their interns to research it, and they cannot find a thing. My case is the first one we can find. The judge declared me a public figure. She said I inserted myself into a controversy, even though at the time I spoke there was no controversy. The controversy came after. So we had a hearing, and the opposition filed for dismissal of the case, saying that it was a frivolous lawsuit because I am a, quote, public figure. I have to prove an additional charge of malice or case of malice. And so the judge dismissed it. Instead of going into a straight appeal, I got a new legal team that specializes in this. They filed for a motion for retrial in order to get case law and more evidence in. So the motion went from like a 14-page document to a 94-page document with my new legal team. The Tulane First Amendment Law Clinic helped. There's so much case law that proves all four aspects of defamation in Louisiana, but I had to go back before that same judge to file for the motion for retrial. I knew she would have to admit she was wrong, and sure enough, she dismissed it again. Now we go to the Court of Appeals, and because we did the motion for retrial, we can carry all of that case law and evidence with us. We're currently waiting on the judge to sign the judgment. Once she signs it, my attorneys will file an appeal and will go before the First Circuit Court of Appeals. These people use my photograph and my name, and not only in the initial post, but in the comments under it. They repeatedly posted that I had mentioned and specifically advocated for a book that has pornographic images. I've never even seen that book before. My defamers have gone back and said, well, we don't know if she actually ever advocated for a pornographic book. Well, that proves malice. They're posting that I did do something, but then they even admit openly they don't know, and maybe I didn't. In their own blog, they just ran their mouth. They're like the gift that keeps on giving. They just keep posting. So I just have to get before a judge that will give me a fair shot. All this is very costly. Because my case was dismissed, I have to pay the attorney fees and court costs of both my defamers, and we're looking at $30,000 to $50,000 each, plus my own attorneys. So you know, what teacher wants to do that? It could cost me $150,000 to $160,000 if I keep appealing and I ultimately lose. Even if we do have a trial, and even if I do win, it's no guarantee that I won't have to pay. I mean, I'd no longer have to pay them, but it's no guarantee that I'd recoup any money for myself. And you know, we're school librarians. Nobody can afford this. And unless you can find someone pro bono, you just don't have the resources to do it. I tried with the ACLU, but they're no longer taking cases in Louisiana. And it's like that in a lot of states because they're so backed up and overloaded. I've been contacted by hundreds of school librarians across the country since this happened, but none of them are willing to talk out about it. They're scared. You see a lot of retired librarians talking about it, but those of us that have our jobs, everybody's scared, just scared. I've had friends that have been followed home from school by Proud Boys. They're scared to draw more attention to it, you know? I've only had 2 students bring it up. One student whispered in my ear, "My mom said you're on one of the good ones, that I can trust you. Can you help me find books with LGBTQ characters?" So that melted my heart. And another student said, "Hey, Miss Jones, I saw you on the news last night." And I had to pivot that, and I said, "Oh, I was also on the cover of a magazine. Look at this." And I switched to my school library journal cover, and then, "Look at this article." My daughter is about to be 16. She plays in her high school band, and they have Friday night football games. When I've gone, I stayed in the shadows because the one time I went and sat, people were pointing and whispering. I don't go anywhere. I'm afraid to go anywhere in my community. I have my groceries delivered now. I bought a taser, pepper spray. We've got security cameras. It's not great. But I'm trying to make lemonade out of lemons. The thing that these people want is for me to be quiet. So I'm going to do the exact opposite. So I speak out as often as I can. I'm very vocal. I do a lot of interviews. I formed a citizens alliance to combat the censorship in my parish. And then I also joined with 2 other ladies from Lafayette Parish, and we created the Louisiana Citizens Against Censorship Alliance. We are actively recruiting citizen alliances in all 64 parishes because the extremist group has said they are coming for all 64 parish public libraries. My thinking is that once they do that, they're going to come for the schools. They've also openly said they work with our Attorney General, who's running for governor, who has publicly stated he's going to be introducing legislation. He's created a snitch line. That's what I call it. It's a hotline for Louisiana citizens to report librarians and educators because apparently we all give children pornography. I'm not going to be quiet. I've signed a deal with the documentarian who is going to start filming in January. A former speechwriter of President Obama is writing a book on civic engagement, and I am going to be in a chapter of that book. I am writing my own book. I am going to speak at the American Library Association conference in January. I have speaking gigs lined up in Alaska, New Hampshire, Missouri. They want me to be quiet. I'm going to do the opposite. When I was selecting the books for a big book order in the fall, the thoughts did cross my mind like, oh, this is on Black history. They're going to say it's critical race theory. The thought did cross my mind to not order it, and then I said, like hell. And so I ordered it, and it is what it is. My students are 10, 11, and 12, so I use professional reviews that say the books that I order are age relevant to my students. I'm following our collection development policy, and I wouldn't put a book that's written for high school in a 5th and 6th grade library. And I get why people are angry. Like, I totally get it. If I was the average citizen that was reading this on Facebook, I'd also be like, oh, this librarian is trying to give kids porn. We've got to stop her. I mean, I'm a parent myself. There's so many falsehoods being told. No one's exposing children to pornographic materials. A lot of what they call pornographic material are books like Julian is a Mermaid, where the little boy dresses as a mermaid, or where a character has 2 mommies. Like, there's nothing pornographic about a book about a kindergartner with 2 moms. It's LGBTQ characters. They're trying to confuse people. Here in Louisiana, we're not known as the most tolerant or the most educated, and I love my state, but they play on that. It's a hot mess. The reason I'm not backing down is not just because I'm pissed about what they did to me, but growing up in this community, my best friend had to move because he's gay and was ostracized. I'm very fortunate he didn't take his life because he was there. And I've lost over 10 students from the LGBT community to suicide. Not when I taught them, but when they got a little older. They were ostracized by their family and friends. And if I can make a change in the world, I'm going to do it, because I'm tired of seeing these kids go through this, even if all I can do is make some folks feel safer and loved. We're seeing legislation being introduced just within the past few months. There was a bill passed in Missouri saying librarians could be arrested and fined. The Missouri Library Association just announced they're suing the state of Missouri, and our Attorney General has said that he's introducing legislation like that in Louisiana. The good thing is, because of my connections, I am working with a team of well-known authors. I'm working with the organization We Need Diverse Books. I'm about to partner with Florida Freedom to Read Foundation. We are starting to get this unity, but the censors get a head start on us. Uniting and working is a slow and quiet process because people are scared to speak out. I'm working with a legal team who will work with the Tulane First Amendment Law Clinic to get a FAQ on your rights for school and public librarians. I shared that with the American Library Association and American Association of School Librarians last night, and we're hoping that our state can be a model with these guidelines and that other states will follow suit. Citizens for a New Louisiana is very well funded by very rich people in Louisiana, and they have a strategic plan of hitting the parishes. It's scary. I know who the donors are. They work behind nonprofits, so the extremist groups are usually nonprofits. We're working on getting them certified as hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Citizens for a New Louisiana is the main one. They're very well funded by wealthy Republicans who are donors to a lot of politicians in my states. And it comes as no shocker to me that all of these politicians who come swooping in to save the day against the evil librarians are running for re-election or new offices. You know, it's all connected. It's all for political gain. My theory is it's all tied to taking money away from libraries and defunding schools and promoting privately owned charter schools. And guess who is going to run the privates? The same people that are donating and causing the ruckus. I don't have hard evidence, but my theory is they're trying to privatize libraries and schools to make money, kind of like what they've done with the prison system. If you would have asked me if someone should get into teaching 2 or 3 years ago, I would say, oh, you need to get into this field. But I've had so many friends, so many teachers defamed on social media these past 2 years, not about libraries or books, just about whatever. People go on social media and just post the biggest lies about teachers, and people believe it. And COVID has affected students' ability to process things. There's been a change. So, if you'd asked me before 2020, yes, I would have encouraged anyone to go into education. Now, absolutely not. And if my child tells me she wants to, I will do everything in my power to talk her out of it. And I come from a long line of educators, my whole family. While I believe in the kids, it's just such an unhealthy system for educators. But then I get scared for the kids. Like, who's going to be teaching my grandkids? You know? It's so toxic. I've been on every committee. I've been on committees at the Department of Education. Nobody's listening. There's no way to make change. It just gets progressively worse. I used to be hopeful, but the past 3 years have beaten me down. I'll fight the good fight my next 8 years till I retire. What I set out to do was just stop the censors at the public library. We have stopped them so far. I don't know that we're going to continue to be victorious, but I accomplished my initial goal, so I'm happy.